This lesson is solving inequalities using addition or subtraction. So yesterday we did what? Writing linear inequalities. Okay, writing linear inequalities. Now we're going to be using addition or subtraction. Do you remember how we did before the equations, right? With the equation. Inequalities, remember, have what? Greater than, less than, I'm sorry, I did that one backwards, right? Greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to, right? An equation, we already know that's going to be what? An equal sign. So in this we have, just as you use the properties of inequality to produce equivalent equations, you can use the property of inequality to produce equivalent inequalities. That means equivalent means what? They have the same solution, okay? Same solution. So let's go on to the second slide so you could see the addition property of inequalities means what? That you're going to add the same number to each side of an equality to produce what? An equivalent inequality, okay? So that means that what you do to one side, you have to do it to the what? To the other side, correct. And that means that A is greater than B. So that means any number that you put as A, the representation of A, or B, A is going to be greater. Then that means that A plus C is going to be greater than B plus C. Who understands that statement there? You can repeat it? Yeah, it's fine. So think about it this way. You have, let me do black here. You have, let's say, give me two numbers that A is going to be greater. Let's use 4, right? Let's use 4. 4 is greater than 3, right? 4 is greater than 3. That is so far what the statement tells me. 4 is greater than 3. But let's say I'm going to have A plus C. What do you guys think plus C will be? Let's use another inequality to give me C. Let's use what? Let's use 3. Okay? If I add 3 here, 3 is my C, correct? 3 is going to be my C. 7 is greater than what? Than 6. The statement still is true, right? What did I do? I added the same number to what? Both sides, and the statement still becomes true. So what you do to one side, you have to do it to the other side. Always remember that. So even though I have the statement 4 is greater than 3, by adding 3 to each side, the statement still becomes true. Is the expression A is still greater than B? And it's going to be vice versa. It also can be vice versa, where A is less than B, and if you do the same thing adding, it will give you the same. So for example, I have what? Let's do a number less than now. I have, let's say, -2 is less than -3. Is that correct? Is -2 less than -3? What if I add, let's say, oh no, I'm sorry, let's use another one. What will be -1? Yes, you're correct. What will be less than -2? No, -1, correct. Good catch. Isn't -2 less than -1? Is -2 less than 0? Yes, right? It all depends, remember, the absolute value as to how many units we are away from a 0. If I add 3, the same example I did before, what's -2 plus 3? What is it? 1. And what is -1 plus 3? 2. Is the statement still true? Is 1 still less than 2? Okay, that's all it's telling me. And that's going to be vice versa also with the subtraction property of inequality. Subtracting the same number from each side of an equality produces an same inequality, which is the equivalent. It's the same thing. Okay, let's do some example. Let's solve using addition. So what do we say? Well, we add to one side, we need to add to the what? So if I have x minus 6 is greater than or equal to negative 10, what am I going to add to both sides? So what's the inverse? Add, right? The addition of 6 on both sides. And I'm left with x is greater than, I'm going to be getting confused, so pay attention because I kind of going to be saying all the time equals, but it's not equal. We're doing an equality, okay? So it's greater than or equal to what? What's negative 10 plus 6? Negative 4. And that's your solution, right? Is it going to be, they're asking us to what? To graph, right? So I always do this so that I do not waste time, especially if I'm doing a test or doing homework. I'm just going to do 1. What's the inverse of negative 4? 4, right? So that's all I do. I just do 1 of the numbers that's given the answer and do the inverse on the other side. By looking at this, I'm going to start graphing. Is it going to be, I locate my negative 4, right? Then my negative 4 is right here. Then I look at what? Is it going to be open circle or closed circle? It's going to be a what? Closed. And I debate now, my third step, am I going to shade to the right or to the left? To the what? I'm going to shade to the right. How can I check if I did that correct? Is negative 4 a solution to the answer? To an equality, negative 4 it is, right? What about I put, let's say, let's do one each. We have, what is the number next to negative 4? To the right-hand side. Negative what? So if I say, is negative 3 greater than or equal to negative 4? Is negative 3 greater than or equal to negative 4? Yes. So I already know that I'm going the right way. But now, do I need to double check my left-hand side number? If you want to do it, you can. Or if you haven't not been able to yet decide which way to graph, then I would do it. Got it? So if I say, what is the number next to negative 4 on the left-hand side? Negative 5. Is negative 5 greater than or equal to negative 4? No, right? So that means I shaded in the correct way. Example 2, I have inequality using subtraction. Y plus 8 is less than or equal to 5. What am I going to do here? I'm using the subtraction. I'm subtracting 8 from both sides. 8 minus 8 cancels out. Y is less than or equal to, what's 5 minus 8? Negative 3. And if I was to graph it, again, I'm going to 0 and do the inverse of negative 3, which is 3. Then I dislocate my negative 3. I look for the location, which is over here. Then I decide whether it's going to be open or closed circle. Is it open or closed? Closed. Then finally, my last step is this. Which way am I shading in? To the left or to the right? Left. And that's your answer. All right. Did everybody copy this? You sure? I need you guys to be copying of the next examples, even though you could go back to the video and go through it. On the next few examples, I want to do what? I want you guys to participate one by one. Not everybody's going to be able to go, but give me some of the answers, okay? Tell me what to do. So I want to understand if you guys truly understand. Before we do, let's look at this error analysis, okay? Describe and correct it in solving the inequality or graphing the solution. So we could solve it or graph it. So one, we're going to solve it, and the other one, we could either graph it or solve it. Let's see. Look at the first one. We have what? Negative 17 is less than x minus 14, right? That's the equation. They told us they did what here? They subtracted. What's the inverse of subtraction? Did they add 14 to both sides? Yes. No? Did they add? They did. So far, they did good here, no? So what is negative 17 plus 14? Negative 3. So far, so good. We know that this cancels out, and it gives me x. So this part is good, too. Let's look at the graphing. Let's locate it. Is it going to be open or closed? It is open, and at negative 3. But what did they do? They shaded to the left. Is that correct? No. It needs to go where? Right. Because what did I say? Remember what we established yesterday. If your variable is on the right-hand side, you are going to go opposite of where the error is going, correct? So that is where they made their mistake in the graphing. The actual computation of the inequality is correct, but the graphing is incorrect. Let's look at the second analysis. It tells me negative 10 plus x is greater than or equal to negative 9. What do I do here? They're telling me to add what? Add 10 to both sides, right? Already, so is there a mistake there? They didn't add the plus 10 on this side, correct? So that this cancels out. And what is negative 9 plus 10? 1. So there's a big difference of a negative 9 and a 1, right? There's a huge difference in numbers of negative 9 and 1. There's a huge difference between negative 9 and 1, correct? So, if I was to graph it, what am I going to do? I'm going to have 0, 1, and negative 1, correct? Where am I locating? Is it going to be open or closed? It's going to be closed, correct? And which way am I going? To the left. And that's your answer. Correct? Let's go on to the next one. Who wants to do? We have a couple questions here. I have a couple questions here. Who wants to answer the number 1? We're going to solve and graph. Who wants to answer number 1? Ethan? What do I do?
Add 2 to both sides.
I'm going to add 2 to
Both sides.
So B is greater than?
Negative 7.
-7. And if I was to graph it,
Start it from -7. Open circle. Move it to the right.
okay, let me use another color to see the difference. And I'm going to the? Is E correct? Class, is E correct? Yes. Okay, who wants to do number 2? Remember, silence is golden. Silence is telling me we understand fully. Number 2. What do I do, Camila? I'm going to add 3 to? So M is less than or greater to 8. If I'm graphing 0 and 8, is it going to be open or closed circle? Closed circle. And which way am I going? To the what? To the left. Is she correct? All right, number 3. Oof. Number 3 looks harder than what it is. Just because we see a fraction, it doesn't mean it's going to be hard, okay? It's 1/4. What is 1/4 equivalent to in decimal? 0.25, a quarter, right? What's the first thing I do here? I'm going to add 1/4 to both sides. That one cancels out. And it's 1/4 plus 1/4 gives me what? Half, right? Which we know that is 2/4. 2/4 is the same as half. Is greater than y. Graphing it, again, what's the inverse of half? Negative half, correct? The inverse integer of half. It's going to be open or closed circle? Open. And which way am I going? To the what? Left. Okay, one more, number 4. It's basically the same thing as our equations. We just, what? Isolating our variables, correct? This is the one-step equation. Eventually, we're going to get into multi-step. What do I do in number 4? Subtract 1.4 to our 8. What's negative 8 minus 1.4? Negative 9. 4 is less than M, correct? Again, graphing, it's going to be negative 9.4 and 9.4. It's going to be open or closed circle. And I'm going to the... There you go.
Do you have anybody that can run upstairs?
In this next slide, if you can see, it got a little bit trickier, right? Now we're seeing more negatives and we're seeing more terms that we have to combine. I like terms. Number 5, what is the first thing I should do there? I see a minus and a negative 2. What do I know when I have a negative and a minus right next to each other? It's going to be what? Positive, right? So it becomes h plus 2 is greater than or equal to 10. Does it look now as a one-step equation? Well, in this case, one-step inequality. So what am I doing? Subtracting 2 of both sides. H is greater than or equal to 8. Number 6, do I have the same problem as number 5? Do I have a negative and a minus together? So that's going to become what? Positive. So it's going to be negative 6 is greater than t plus 13, correct? What do I get rid of here? By what? Subtracting, right? So my answer is going to become negative 19 is greater than t. In number 7, can I simplify before I start, or combining, before I start moving, isolating? 9 minus 3, correct? So j plus what? Is less than 8. Now, can I isolate the j for the j? By what? subtracting 6. So J is less than 2. There you go.
Thank you.
What about number 8?
Thank you very much.
I'm going to combine this, right? What is 1 minus 12? Negative 11 plus y is greater than or equal to negative 5. What's my next step? Add 11 to both sides. Y is greater than or equal to, what's negative 5 plus 11? 6. Those were all with constants, right? Those were combining constants. Now we're going to be combining variable terms, okay? And number 9, what two terms here, which are variables, can I combine? So 10 is going to be greater than or equal to, what's 3p minus 2p? P minus 7. What's my next step? Add 7 on. Oops, I put 8. Add 7 to both sides. What's 10 plus 7? 17. My 17 looks like a inequality sign. 17 is greater than or equal to P. And finally, number 10. I'm going to combine my variable terms. What is negative 5z plus 6z? Do I touch my 18? No, right? But what's negative 5z plus 6z? Is it positive or negative? Positive, right? Plus z is greater than, what's 3 plus 9? I mean 3 plus 6. I already gave you the answer. What's 3 plus 6? 9. Now what am I going to get rid of? By what? So I'm left with z is greater than, what is 9 minus 18? Negative 9. And that's today's lesson.